I just wanted to talk to you about Christmas and the run up to Christmas. There's a lot of anticipation, so much excitement from
Mm.
my kids, and it's lovely to watch. And I love the whole process of, Christmas Eve and everything else. However, I want to try and manage it a little bit better this year because we have very excited children. Noah, especially, is super excited and doesn't sleep very well, sleeps late, which is never a good thing for him because he's out of his routine already. And then they're up super early for Santa's presents. And we seem to go into a very steady decline. And we're at like the lowest point by about 11 o'clock, which is, we haven't even had Christmas lunch. So have you got any advice as to how we can best kind of navigate that without taking away any of the fun and the excitement of it?
Yeah, I love that key of we don't want to take away the fun. We don't want to, minimize the excitement, but we want to manage it. And I think that remembering that positive charge to an emotion can be just as dysregulating as something that's not perceived as positive. So, getting too much of any kind of emotion can be overwhelming to your nervous system. So, thinking about ways that you can lean into the fun, how can you spread it over more days, for example? So, what are some of the activities that you can involve him in leading up to the day? So, if he's into helping in the kitchen, are there cookies he can help make and decorate? If he's more into decorating, can you help him, do different things to help decorate the house and spread it out over multiple days so it's not one big task? And with the presents as well, that's one of the biggest exciting factors for kids is how can you spread that out as well? So you might do something like an advent calendar, or you might do the 12 days of Christmas, or you might do, any amount of leading up to the day. So it might be, on just the weekends in the month of December, or you could do it just the week of, whatever you want to do, but having a little bit of surprise and fun on those days can go a long way to give a little bit of space for that excitement to actually be expressed and processed and eliminated. So there's room for more in the following days.
Okay, got it. That's great advice.
Yeah.
And also after the present opening, everything else is Christmas lunch.
Mm.
We always have a lot of family, big Christmas lunch, lots of roast turkey and vegetables. And my son, he's not a great fan of all of those things, but also needs to eat. So how do we kind of navigate that? We have a lot of family, as I say. Everyone's going to be expecting to eat the same thing. Timings of that, normally we eat later because it's busy, and there's lots of things happening. So that whole kind of process of food and how we eat together is going to be different for that day. So how do we kind of try and manage that for him?
Yeah, I think there's so much to try and balance there. So there, again, coming back to the regulation of the day, I think a couple of things that can be really key to help him stay regulated and not melt down before or during dinner would be think about food throughout the day. So if you're responsible for food prep, this can be really tricky and hard, but is there something that you can make sure that you are offering as food, whether it's snacks or whether it's a breakfast and a lunch, but making sure that he's not starving hungry by the time dinner comes around, as well as thinking about the stimulation level. So perhaps he doesn't need to be inside as all of the guests are arriving. That can be a little bit tricky to be ding dong, right after each one. So, is there a place for him to hang out outside or in another area of the building? Something that would help him not necessarily have to go through all of the greetings. If you can have that do just one lump of, oh, Noah's back, and he gets to say hello at that point. And then also thinking about in the morning, as you guys are doing presents, one thing that I think is really key is you don't have to open them all at once. And I've noticed, especially in my family, that when we have someone who's very excited about getting all the presents to everyone and then opened. And then I have someone else who's much more of a savorer, and he wants to see each present as it's opened. And he gets confused if he's supposed to open while someone else is So knowing what dynamic will work best to keep everyone in your family regulated, and always defaulting to the lowest common denominator. So instead of making someone who needs less stimulation tolerate more, you need everybody to come down to the person that has the lowest tolerance.
Great. And also, how should I manage iPads and screen time on Christmas Day? Because for some of my other children, the last thing that they even think about on Christmas Day is any type of screen time, because they're in the moment, they're enjoying their toys, they're playing with their cousins, they are, they're just having a blast and eating too much candy and all of that kind of thing. Whereas for my son, it's, he tends to like to stick to the same things. It's kind of a more normal day for him. There's not that excitement when he's, when we've got guests or we've got family or whatever. So, he probably will still want to use his devices. Is there any way that we can kind of encourage less screen time on Christmas Day, or should we allow that? Should we let it just happen? What's your best advice on that?
One of the key things is having multiple ways that he can regulate. And if there's an activity that could involve one or more other kids that is regulating for him, so perhaps it's running around outside, perhaps it's a building project with Legos, whatever it is that is something that he can do that is sort of organizing for him and gives him a purpose, that would be something to think about as an alternative or as an additional thing that he can do. Because you don't want to limit it to like, this is the only way that he's going to regulate during the day. And then also, there's nothing wrong with needing some time to step away, have some quiet time. But where it becomes problematic is when the transition back is not encouraged and doesn't happen. So, you don't want it to be, he went back at 10 a.m. and you haven't seen him in at 6 p.m. And then there's all kinds of regulation issues around that. So figuring out a way there's this chunk of time where it would be appropriate, but then having an activity or some sort of thing planned where the intention is for him to return, to come back to the group. And hopefully it's something that, it's not going to be as appealing as the iPad, but it hopefully is something that he can do and can enjoy. So, whether that's a goodbye, like he's happy everybody's leaving, or perhaps they're going outside to do something. So, knowing how long is too long for him to be with technology, most parents know, oh yeah, if I let him go for 2 hours, there's no getting him back. So knowing I need to have less time so I don't have that transition struggle, and just kind of keeping that in the plan.
Keeping it in track. Right. Okay, great. Thank you. With the food for Christmas, with Christmas lunch, have you got any advice as to how we kind of navigate Christmas lunch?
Yeah, I would think about how much flexibility there is in your family for introducing new dishes, or if everything is a very traditional, like we always have these dishes. If you've got a lot of traditional food that you serve at Christmas and everybody's expecting it, and will be disappointed if it's not there, those are foods that you might want to do some trial runs in the weeks or months before Christmas comes, so that he's exposed to them and he knows what this food is, what it smells like, what it looks like, and if he's open to it, what it tastes like. But I think around food, especially holiday food, forcing is never a good move, because there's already going to be issues with appetite and anxiety. So just having the exposure is really all you can hope to do. And then, if there are traditional foods that he's okay with and can eat at least a little bit of, then you can count on those as being things on his plate, but you may need to fill in, what is a vegetable that he can tolerate? What is a protein he can eat? And if his plate looks different than everybody else's, that's okay. You might get some questions, you might get some looks, but if you have a child who's able to get through the dinner and is able to eat, that is a win. And you can also do some of that prep for the family ahead of time of, some of these foods are really hard for him to eat. And so his plate might look a little bit different, but what's important to me is that he can be there with family.